My husband treated paternity leave like a vacation while our newborn was in the NICU. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that paternity leave isn't a holiday? I'm in my 30s, and I gave birth to our son just a few days ago. The birth was incredibly traumatic. I suffered a severe postpartum hemorrhage and lost almost 2 liters of blood. Doctors had to perform emergency surgery to remove my placenta. So while I was trying to recover physically from childbirth, major blood loss, and surgery, we received even more frightening news. Our newborn son was born with a serious heart condition. He was taken directly to the NICU. Doctors told us he would likely need heart surgery, and since then, they've discovered another abnormality that they're still investigating. My husband also has an older son from a previous relationship. I'll call him Greg. I want to make something very clear. I have absolutely no problem with Greg spending time with his father. I wanted him to meet his little brother. I have never asked my husband to choose between his children. 2 days after I gave birth, I thought Greg's mother would bring him to the hospital so he could meet the baby and then take him home. Instead, my husband collected Greg himself and spent basically the entire day with him. They went on the London Eye. They went out for lunch. My husband had a beer. Then they went home and played Xbox until Greg was collected around 9 that night. Normally, that sounds like a great father and son day. Except my husband had a newborn baby in the NICU and a wife recovering in the hospital after losing almost 2 liters of blood. During that entire day, he spent around 20 minutes with our newborn. 20 minutes. He barely spent any time with me either. My mother stayed with me on the postnatal ward, but she wasn't allowed into the NICU, so when I wanted to visit my critically ill newborn, I had to make my own way there while recovering from childbirth, emergency surgery, and severe blood loss. I tried explaining why I was upset. Again, the problem was not that he spent time with Greg. The problem was that I hadn't expected him to leave me and our critically ill newborn alone for almost the entire day. He became defensive and said he was being a parent. I told him I understood that, but I needed him to also be a father to our newborn and a husband to me during a medical emergency. When I explained how serious my blood loss had been, his response was, "My sister lost 5. The next day, doctors told me they had discovered another abnormality with our baby's heart. When I told my husband, he complained that nobody had informed him earlier. I pointed out the obvious. He hadn't been there. I've now been discharged, but our baby is still in the NICU. I'm exhausted. I'm terrified. Meanwhile, my husband is on paternity leave, and once again he spent the morning taking Greg to the cinema. That's when I finally told him, paternity leave isn't a holiday. I told him I didn't feel supported. I said that if this was what his paternity leave was going to look like, I'd almost rather he simply went back to work, because at least then I would understand why I was handling everything alone. He says I'm being unfair and that he's trying to balance the needs of both of his children. I understand that Greg still needs his father, but our newborn is currently in intensive care. He may need heart surgery. I've just gone through a traumatic birth and emergency surgery myself. I'm not asking my husband to abandon his older son. I'm asking him to recognize that right now, our family is experiencing a medical crisis. So, am I the asshole for telling my husband that paternity leave isn't a holiday? My boyfriend said he got another woman pregnant, then called it a prank. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my boyfriend over an unfunny prank? I'm 33 now, but this happened about 8 years ago when my boyfriend John and I were both around 25. We dated for about 10 months. Recently, I saw John for the first time in 8 years at a mutual friend's party. He got extremely drunk and decided to tell basically anyone who would listen the story of how we broke up. And after hearing it, several people told me I had completely overreacted. So here's what happened. One Saturday morning, John was staying at my place. I woke up, went downstairs, and started making coffee. Then I heard him showering upstairs. A little later, he came downstairs completely dressed and ready for work. I quickly realized he had gotten confused and thought it was a weekday. I didn't immediately tell him. Instead, while he was putting his shoes on, I kept asking, "So, what day is it?" Eventually he got annoyed, checked his smartwatch, and realized it was Saturday. He was pretty mad. He told me it was a bad prank and said he would pay me back. Fine. The next day, while we were apart, I received a text from him. "We need to talk. I'm so sorry. I got another girl pregnant." My immediate reaction was basically, if this is your revenge prank, it failed. I didn't believe him. But instead of dropping it, John doubled down, then tripled down, then quadrupled down. He swore on things he cared about that it was true. He even sent me an obviously fake ultrasound picture. I kept telling him, "Dude, I don't believe you. Stop. You're making this incredibly weird." But he refused to stop. This went on for an entire day. Eventually, I became so uncomfortable with the whole thing that I said, "Well, okay. If you're having a baby with some mystery woman, then we need to break up." And suddenly he celebrated. "Ha! My prank worked. Boom. Pranked." Apparently, because I finally responded as if his story might be true, he considered that a victory. But I didn't find it funny. At all. After spending an entire day watching my boyfriend desperately try to convince me that he had cheated and gotten another woman pregnant, something about him just felt different to me. I was weirded out. A few days later, we broke up. John refused to acknowledge that he had taken the prank too far. His position was basically that I had simply needed more convincing before I finally fell for it. 8 years later, he's apparently still upset. At the party, he was retelling the story and practically polling people about who was wrong. Several people, mostly men, came up to me afterward and said, "It was just a joke." Maybe it was, but I don't think the problem was simply the subject of the prank. It was how aggressively he kept pushing it after I repeatedly told him I didn't believe him and wanted him to stop. So, am I the asshole for breaking up with someone because of a prank that went way too far? My future sister-in-law mocked my mom in public, then my fiancé blamed me for defending her. Am I the asshole for standing up for my mother? I'm 26, and I've been engaged to my 28-year-old fiancé for about 6 months. From the beginning, his older sister has looked down on me and my family. I come from a middle-class background, and she regularly makes comments about our financial situation. She's even told me that I'm not good enough for her brother. Last weekend, we all went shopping for my wedding. My mother came because she wanted to be part of the experience. Throughout the day, my future sister-in-law kept making faces at dresses my mother liked. I tried to ignore it. Then, we stopped at a cafe. My future sister-in-law looked at me and said, "Oh, you can actually afford this place?" I'm surprised. Again, I ignored her because I didn't want drama. Then my mother noticed a beautiful scarf in a nearby shop and pointed it out. My future sister-in-law laughed loudly and said, "Oh, Mom, that looks so outdated and cheap." She said it loudly enough for people around us to hear. My mother immediately became quiet. She looked humiliated. And that was the moment I'd had enough. I looked at my future sister-in-law and calmly said, "Please don't talk to my mother like that. She is not your servant." I didn't scream. I didn't insult her. I simply told her to stop disrespecting my mother. She went completely silent. Then she stood up and started crying. She accused me of disrespecting her in public and ruining her mood. Then she called my fiancé and told him that I had attacked her for no reason. And somehow, he took her side. My fiancé became furious with me. He said I should have stayed quiet because his sister is older than me, and I need to adjust. Then he told me something that really bothered me. He said our engagement is already on thin ice because his sister isn't happy about our marriage. According to him, I'm the problem, and I need to apologize. But I don't feel like I did anything wrong. I didn't shout at her. I didn't insult her. I defended my mother after she had repeatedly mocked her. Now my mother feels guilty and says maybe she shouldn't have come shopping with us at all. That breaks my heart. Meanwhile, my future sister-in-law is telling the entire family that I'm rude and controlling. She's presenting herself as the victim, and apparently people are believing her. I don't want to apologize for defending my mother, but I also don't want to lose my fiancé. Although at this point, I'm starting to wonder whether the bigger problem is that my fiancé thinks keeping his sister happy is more important than how she treats me and my family. So, am I the asshole for publicly telling my future sister-in-law to stop mocking my mother? My roommate wanted 10 days alone with her boyfriend, then expected me to pay for their Airbnb. Am I the asshole for refusing to leave my own apartment while my roommate has a guest? I'm 36, and I've been living with my 32-year-old female roommate for about 4 years. The arrangement worked pretty well until now. Our apartment has 3 rooms. I use the largest bedroom because I work from home and need enough space for both my bed and my office. My roommate has the smaller bedroom, plus almost complete use of the living room. We've always split the rent 50-50. I also have a girlfriend. She visits about twice a week and occasionally stays overnight. My roommate has been in a long-distance relationship for about a year. Recently, her boyfriend decided to visit her for 10 days. The plan was for him to stay at our apartment. I had absolutely no problem with that. Then, as his visit got closer, my roommate started asking whether I was planning to go on vacation while he was here. I told her no. I'm a freelancer. If I don't work, I don't get paid. I also already had trips planned for other months, so I wasn't going to randomly disappear for 10 days. She seemed to understand. Then, a few days before her boyfriend arrived, she asked again. Was I going anywhere? Again, I said no. The next day, everything became clear. She told me that because I refused to leave, she had been forced to rent an Airbnb for herself and her boyfriend for 10 days. Okay, her choice. Except then she said I should pay for it. Yes, she wanted ME to cover their Airbnb because, according to her, they only needed it because I refused to leave my own apartment. I thought she was joking. I reminded her that I had no problem with her boyfriend staying with us. She said they needed privacy, and my presence at home was unwanted. Therefore, she had no other choice. I told her that if they wanted complete privacy, they were free to pay for it. But I wasn't paying to be removed from an apartment I already pay rent for. Then she changed tactics. Suddenly, she said my girlfriend should contribute to our rent because she visits regularly. I said no. My girlfriend is a guest, not a resident. When that didn't work, my roommate suddenly decided our rent split was unfair. Now she said I should pay more because I have the larger bedroom. Except we've lived together for 4 years. Every lease renewal, including the most recent one, she agreed to the same arrangement. And she effectively gets the living room as a second personal space. At that point, it felt like she was throwing arguments at the wall. First, I should leave for 10 days. Then, I should pay for the Airbnb. Then, my girlfriend should pay rent. Then, I should pay more rent. Finally, she said, I thought we were friends. Apparently, if we were really friends, disappearing from my home for 10 days would be a small favor. Then she called me classless. My girlfriend and friends think this is ridiculous. Their position is simple. I pay rent. I live there. I work there. I have every right to be there. If my roommate and her boyfriend want 10 days of complete privacy, that's something they need to arrange and pay for. So, am I the asshole for refusing to leave the apartment I pay for while my roommate's boyfriend is visiting? My parents drove 4 hours to surprise me. I refused to let them in. Am I the asshole for not letting my parents in after they drove 4 hours to see me? I'm 23, and I moved out shortly after high school. Growing up with my parents involved a lot of drama and chaos. I do love them. They also did a lot for me growing up. But our relationship works much better from a distance. Recently, I was out grocery shopping when I happened to check Life 360. My location is turned off, but I still occasionally get notifications from the family group. This time, I saw that my parents were at a rest stop only about 40 minutes from my home. They don't have family where I live, so I immediately knew where they were going. They were coming to see me. Without telling me, they had already driven for hours and were almost at my apartment. I called them immediately, and I admit, I lost my temper. I told them they needed to turn around because I wasn't home, and I wasn't coming home to meet them. I probably should have calmed down before calling, but I was furious. They had no idea what I was doing that day. They didn't know whether I was working. They didn't know whether I had plans. They just assumed they could drive 4 hours and I would drop everything because they had decided to visit. They didn't believe I would actually refuse to see them. So they waited near my place. For about 2 hours. Even after I finished grocery shopping, I felt like I couldn't go back to my own home because I knew they might be waiting there. Eventually, they finally left. Afterward, they went on and on about how disrespectful I was. They reminded me of everything they had done for me growing up. They talked about how some parents throw their children out and how I should be grateful. But to me, that misses the point. This wasn't about whether I love them. It was about them deciding that because they drove 4 hours, I was automatically obligated to receive them. There's a reason I moved out young, even in this economy. I needed distance, and I feel like showing up at my home without warning ignores that boundary completely. Maybe refusing to see them after they had already driven that far was harsh. Maybe I should have let them in for a little while and addressed the boundary afterward. But part of me thinks that if I had done that, it would have taught them that surprise visits work. So, am I the asshole for refusing to let my parents in after they drove 4 hours to see me without telling me? A stranger told me to make my daughter look more like a girl, so I told her I didn't care. Am I the asshole for telling a random stranger I don't care if she can tell my child's gender? I was grocery shopping with my 4.5-year-old son and my 18-month-old daughter. My son is very obviously a boy. My daughter is still at that toddler stage where she doesn't have much hair. That day she was wearing a blue tank top outfit with bows, pink stripes, and the word princess across the front. While we were standing in the checkout line, a woman who looked to be in her mid-50s commented on how cute my little boys were. I wasn't offended. I simply thanked her and casually said that the youngest was actually a girl. That could have been the end of the conversation. Instead, the woman told me that I should style my daughter's hair or put bows in it so people could tell she was a girl. I told her I really didn't care whether she or anybody else could tell. At the end of the day, random strangers don't need to know my child's gender. Apparently, she didn't appreciate that response. She told me I was rude. Then she continued making comments. I ignored her until she eventually called me a bitch. At that point, I told her to piss off. The cashier actually giggled. The next day, I told a coworker about the interaction. She also has a young child around my daughter's age. To my surprise, she said I had been the asshole. So now I'm wondering whether my response was unnecessarily confrontational. To clarify, I was never upset that the woman initially thought my daughter was a boy. Toddlers get mistaken for the opposite gender all the time. I corrected her almost automatically as part of normal small talk. What annoyed me was what came next. She decided I needed to change how I dress or style my child so complete strangers could identify her gender more easily. And when I said I didn't care about that, she became insulting. I was polite until she wasn't. So, am I the asshole for telling a stranger that I don't care whether she can tell my daughter is a girl? My mom wanted to use my apartment as a free layover, with the brother she's always favored. Am I the asshole for telling my mom she can't stay at my place with my brother, even for one night? I'm a woman in my 30s, and I come from a cultural background where boys are heavily favored. Growing up, my mother always prioritized my younger brother over me. He got more money, more freedom, bigger birthday gifts, more forgiveness. Meanwhile, I was expected to be independent, understanding, and never make waves. My brother is now 25, and he's still extremely codependent with our mother. They're basically joined at the hip, and she enables it constantly. I've spent the last few years trying to create some distance and establish boundaries. Recently, my mother texted me asking whether she and my brother could stay at my apartment next week. They're traveling together for a conference. My mother is paying for both of their flights and their hotel. But because they have an early flight the next morning, they want to stay at my apartment the night before. It's just one night. The problem is, this isn't the first time they've treated my home like a convenient stopover. A few years ago, they came to my tiny one-bedroom apartment on my actual birthday. My mother slept in my bed with me. My brother slept in the living room. They left a mess everywhere. And the entire visit felt less like they had come to celebrate my birthday and more like they were using my place because they needed to catch a train to Amsterdam the next day. I felt like a free Airbnb. So when my mother asked this time, I said no. I didn't give her a huge explanation. I simply told her it didn't work for me. She wasn't happy, and I can already feel the guilt trip coming. I know it's only one night. I know letting them stay would make their trip easier, but I'm tired of being expected to accommodate them because I'm the independent one. Especially when my mother is already spending significant money on flights and hotels for my brother. My apartment shouldn't automatically become their free layover whenever it's convenient. So, am I the asshole for telling my mom that she and my brother can't stay at my apartment for one night? My friend said no twice, then got angry because I believed her. Am I the asshole for taking my friend's no at face value instead of insisting? I'm 25, and I have a close friend who has been dealing with a lot of stress lately. Nothing life-threatening, but enough that she's been isolating herself, skipping meals, and generally not taking great care of herself. One evening, we were hanging out. I realized she hadn't eaten anything all day, so I offered to order food for her. She said, "I'm not hungry." A few minutes later, because I knew she hadn't eaten, I asked again. She gave me the same answer. No. So I dropped it. I figured she was an adult. I had offered twice. She had declined twice. I respected her answer. Later that night, she texted me saying she was upset with me. Apparently, I should have known she didn't actually mean no. She said a real friend would have insisted. According to her, I should have ordered food anyway, or at least kept pushing, because it was obvious she was struggling. I told her I care about her. But I also believe adults should be able to say what they mean. If someone tells me no twice, I'm going to respect that. I don't think it's my place to override someone's decision, because I've decided I know what they really want better than they do. She argued that when people are emotionally overwhelmed, sometimes they need someone to push through their resistance. And I understand the idea. But I told her, expecting people to read her mind isn't fair. If she wants help, she can tell me. I'll gladly help her. But I can't be expected to know which no means no, and which no secretly means, please ignore what I'm saying and do it anyway. Now, a few mutual friends think I was too detached. They think I should have recognized that she needed support, even though she wasn't directly asking for it. Maybe I could have checked in with her emotionally, instead of simply dropping the subject. But I still don't think respecting someone's clearly stated boundary makes me a bad friend. So, am I the asshole for taking my friend's no seriously, instead of insisting? My roommate's new girlfriend has never met me, but she's already uncomfortable with me living there. Am I the asshole if I refuse to move out because my roommate's new girlfriend is uncomfortable with me? I'm a 30-year-old woman, and for the last year, I've been living with a 26-year-old man. We were randomly paired as roommates, and surprisingly, it worked out really well. We've had virtually no major issues. We became friends, but nothing remotely romantic has ever happened between us. We occasionally watch movies together. We might grab lunch or dinner once every few months. We chat when we're both home. That's about it. We're both straight, but we seem to have completely opposite taste in partners anyway. A few months ago, my roommate started using dating apps. Recently, he got a girlfriend. Around their third date, he told her he had a female roommate. According to him, she was definitely uncomfortable with that. At the time, he told me he hoped the two of us would get along. I even suggested that once their relationship became more established, we could all have dinner together. Several weeks passed. Yesterday, my roommate actually started arranging that dinner. Then today, completely out of nowhere, he started talking about moving out when his lease ends. At first, he said it was because he wanted a parking spot. Parking has been a minor issue before. I moved into the apartment first and secured the parking space. When he moved in, we agreed that I would take the smaller bedroom and pay slightly less rent in exchange for keeping the parking spot. He had complained about it a couple of times in the past, but eventually found reliable street parking and hadn't mentioned it in months. So the sudden parking issue felt strange. Then he added, "And my girlfriend is a bit uncomfortable." And immediately, everything made sense. He explained that if I moved out, he would stay in the apartment. But if I stayed, he would move out. The conversation was civil. He didn't demand that I leave immediately. But I was caught completely off guard. His girlfriend and I haven't even met. There has never been romantic interest between my roommate and me. I lived here first. And now I'm wondering whether I'm somehow expected to uproot my life to make a stranger more comfortable in a relationship I'm not involved in. Part of me understands her discomfort. Some people simply aren't comfortable with their partner living with someone of the opposite sex. But I also feel like that's something my roommate and his girlfriend need to work out. If he decides their relationship means he needs a different living situation, he's free to move. I just don't understand why I should be the one expected to leave. So, am I the asshole if I stay in my apartment and let my roommate decide whether he wants to move out? My brother said I'm lucky to afford more vacations. I told him he chose to have 5 kids. Am I the asshole for telling my brother he shouldn't have had 5 kids if he wanted to travel as much as my family? I'm 35, my wife is also 35, and we have 2 children. Our daughter is 7, and our son is 3. My older brother and his wife have 5 children, ranging from 1 to 10 years old. One important detail: my brother and I earn roughly the same amount of money. We're both high earners. My wife and I could probably have afforded more children, but we deliberately stopped at 2. We knew that mentally, 2 children were about as much as we wanted to handle. We also wanted to maintain a certain lifestyle for our family. One of the things we love spending money on is travel. During school holidays and bank holidays, we travel whenever we reasonably can. Sometimes it's a full vacation. Sometimes it's an extended weekend. I'm self-employed, so with enough planning I can take a decent amount of time off. My brother and his wife made a different choice. They decided to have 5 children. They can afford them. They aren't struggling. They even take a family holiday about once a year. But supporting 7 people obviously costs more than supporting 4. Travel is also much more expensive for 7 people. Flights, accommodation, food, tickets, everything adds up. My wife and I also find traveling with 2 children relatively manageable. There are 2 parents and 2 kids. We aren't outnumbered. Recently, I was at my brother's house with my 3-year-old son. While I was there, I checked an email about a ski trip I had booked for February. My brother asked what it was. I told him. He scoffed. Then he started talking about how lucky I was. He said he wished he could travel as much as we do. He told me I take my luck for granted. This turned into about a 5-minute rant. Eventually, I got annoyed. Because financially, I'm not dramatically luckier than him. We earn about the same amount. We simply made different choices. So I shrugged and said, I'm no luckier than you financially. I just didn't have 5 kids. If you wanted to go on more trips, you shouldn't have had 5 kids. He laughed. And at the time, I thought that was the end of it. For context, we're British, and my brother and I joke like this all the time. He has said things like, well, you shouldn't have had kids. Or, that's what happens when you have 2 kids. Whenever I complain about parenting, I've never been offended. So I said my comment in the same joking tone. I wasn't saying his children were mistakes. I wasn't insulting them. My point was simply that choices have consequences. My wife and I intentionally stopped at 2, partly because of the lifestyle we wanted. My brother chose 5. Both choices are valid, but they naturally create different financial realities. About an hour after I left, however, my brother texted me. He said what I had said was really uncalled for. Maybe I hit a nerve without realizing it. Maybe bringing up his 5 children was harsher than I intended, but I also think calling me lucky ignores the deliberate decisions my wife and I made. So, am I the asshole for telling my brother that if he wanted to travel as much as my family does, he shouldn't have had 5 kids?